Nigeria Labour Congress expresses worry as NNPC adjusts fuel pump price. Court fails to hear Labour Party Peter Obi's petition due to ill health of party staff. The PDP has right to suspend and expel Wike if party's constitution is followed, court rules. And outside of Nigeria, Zimbabwe elections set for the 23rd of August 2023. The United Nations extends sanctions on South Sudan for a year. Joining me tonight on Politics HQ, I have Dr. Omoshola Deji, Public Affairs Analyst, and also Engineer Alex Naim, CEO of Gbenga Nigeria Limited. I am Gbenga Aborowa. Stay with us, Politics HQ. We'll be right back. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced on Inauguration Day that there will be no longer fuel subsidy in the country, while the stock market reacted positively to the announcement. A petroleum market and general Nigerian populace have not taken it with delight. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has also announced a price list on Wednesday, and the queues have resumed while cost of food and services are expected to follow suit. Some Nigerians have hailed the president's boldness, while some others have blamed the strategy and communication of such important decisions. Petroleum marketers have weighed in as one of Nigeria's biggest issues, petroleum resurfaces. Joining me tonight on this important discussion is Dr. Omoshola Deji, Public Affairs Analyst, and Engineer Alex Naim, CEO of Gbenga Nigeria Limited. Before I bring on the guests, let's just take a listen to what Nigerians are saying about this latest development.
It's too hard for citizens to be cope for this kind of thing. For here now to Lekki now, say 500. From here to Aja 1,000. It's too much. So may God help us for this new government.
I do feel for the passenger as well, because how much is their salary? If a passenger is paying transport fare of 300 naira instead of 100 naira, if a passenger is paying 500 naira instead of 100 naira, we as driver, we are not happy about it.
I can say it's too early to comment because the policy has started before he assumed office, if you can understand. Because we were told that they are going to remove subsidy. He only speak on the inauguration day, but they are yet to implement it. But what is going on throughout the world now, throughout Nigeria now, is that our marketers, they are too greedy. Because the fuel they bought before are still with them. Where are they holding it?
You can see everywhere for yourself. Everywhere is blocked. Motor vehicles, cars are not moving. Humans, people are not going for work, no schools. Everything is so capsizing. Nobody's moving. So it's so frustrating. And we voted for this government.
So we're in this filling station over like 18 hours now. Everybody's messed up. They should look for something to do. So me, personally, I'm tired. If I be able to live to deny this country, I will deny this country. I want to leave this country. I'm tired.
Now, joining us in this discussion, I would like to start with Dr. Omoshola Deji. Thanks for joining us on Politics HQ once again. Now, what's your expert opinion on the removal of the subsidy, and did it come to you as a shock?
Well, I was expecting the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to remove subsidy, but not at the time and in the way and manner he actually went by it. So because subsidy in Nigeria now benefits more of a cartel, because Nigeria has not been able to overcome a cartel whereby they kind of like export the fuel, import refined product, and at the end of the day, they are not able to make like a specific detail of how much was exported or imported. So it's like a cartel system whereby they just submit the invoice to the government and they try to get the balance of the cost of the petroleum product and what the citizens are buying
it leaves
in the
room
market.
for corruption and
So it leaves
exploitation,
room
yeah.
for corruption. So the removal of fuel subsidy is overdue because government needs those resources to channel it into infrastructure and other needs of the citizen. But the way and manner the new president went by it, it leaves more to be desired as regards his government. He went by it in such an emperor style, in a system whereby you already have the state under your beck and call, whereby you have strong command of the state and the citizen. So for him, as an incoming president at the time, to have made that announcement on his inauguration day leaves much to be desired, because if you look at the
but don't you think it's Nigerians that overreacted? Because the budgetary provisions for subsidy says it can last us to the end of June. Don't you think he was panic buying, and he didn't mean it that way, but because of the peculiar nature of Nigerians, they overreacted to it? Because when he said subsidy is gone, of course he campaigned with it. Even opposition political parties did say, you know, we've reached a point where subsidy has to go. So don't you think it was an accidental reaction on the part of Nigerians? And when he said subsidy is gone on his inauguration day, he really didn't mean it literally, that it has to take effect now.
I don't think this more of overreaction on the part of citizens. I see it as an emperor style of the person, because in his speech, he said anything he's going to do is going to consult, he's going to liaise with people. And instantly, he broke that promise by saying subsidy is gone. You have never been a president, so who did you consult before declaring that subsidy is gone? You just did that, you know, by your own thinking and wish, which contradicts what he just said. Now, I don't support panic buying, but it is normal for the citizen to react that way, because our lives is tied to petroleum produce one way or the other. Nigeria is a monoproduct economy. Now, almost everybody has one form of generator or the other
so we're not only using petrol for transportation.
Not for only transportation. So everybody uses petrol one way, because you either have maybe a car or a bike, or you use commercial transportation. And once petrol prices increase, definitely the price of goods and services generally increase.
Yeah, generator for businesses too.
So I don't support panic buying anyway, but it's normal for the market to react that way, because the president has spoken. Don't forget that in Nigeria we operate this, you know, top-bottom approach. So once the man, at the end of affairs, look at when Supreme Court gave judgment as regards the Naira redesign policy. Everybody were foot dragging. They didn't obey. Not only the president at the time made an announcement and said, okay, now collect the old 200, and instantly everything picks up. So we operate a top to bottom kind of approach. It's normal for the market to react.
Is very important and very powerful.
Well, in a system of ours, when we have weak institutions, when we don't follow due process, where it is easy for anybody at the end of affairs to dictate, and the state and its institution and machinery will follow that route. So the words of president ought to wait based on the kind of system that we operate. Not that it is normal, but because of the type of system we operate, that's where we found ourselves.
Now, Dr. Deji, with a sudden hike in transport fares over 300%, I'm sure you've moved around Lagos a lot since then. You've seen how a lot of people are struggling, and you did hear that Vox Pop Nigerians speaking about this development. What are the potential consequences on our economy, particularly for individuals who rely heavily on public transportation?
Well, the problem now is the NURTW are just going to use this as an opportunity to cash out, because if you look at the price at which they will charge, and you do your calculation on the price of petrol, then it's not going to correspond with the actual increase. So we've always had that over the years, and the problem now on the economy and families of people is that all the prices are going to increase, but people's income remains the same. So when food prices increase, when all the prices of commodities increase, and your income remains the same, now it now makes survival a struggle. What will that lead to? Increase in corruption, increase in crime. At the end of the day, people will strike to survive one way or the other. So what I think government should have done is a systematic increase over time. Not that you just wake up and put a 300% increase.
Opponents of that say, you know, you're still subsidizing if it's 10%, if it's 30%, that we're just postponing the D-Day. So it's better to take it off.
Then in this case,
we deal with the consequences.
Well, I don't think with what Nigerians are going through now, with the low state of our economy and all, that you can just increase the price of petroleum price by over 300% increase. What I think government should have done on the alternative is perhaps to let the Dangote refinery be functioning, let it start operation, so that local production would ease our demand for foreign supply. So when the local production is our demand for foreign supply, when you now remove this subsidy, perhaps, most likely, the price of commodity will not be 500, will not be 488 in Lagos as, you know, government has set the price. So I think the president-elect was overconfident, was too forward, because now, the result of the election, if you look at the statistics, people that don't want you in government are more than people that actually want you in government. Because if you match the vote of opposition, the PTB candidate, the NNPC candidate, and all the opposition, they are way more than your vote. So that tells us that Nigerians that don't want you in power are more than those that want you in power. So when you are coming into government with low legitimacy, when you are coming into government with a system that the election that produced you, there's so much doubt on it. I think what you need to first of all do is to win the heart of the masses, is to let the people gain confidence in you. But to just come on board and by executive fiat and just say subsidy is gone, you can only do that in a system that it is sure for you that the system is conquered and there will be no consequence. If you know that there will be consequence, I don't think you will go that route, because you have not made any effort to put things in place that will cushion the effect. You've not had any meeting with the road transport workers. You've not had any meeting with labor union. You've not had any meeting with employers of labor. You have not used hours as president. And the first thing you come up is like, it's wrong. It's wrong in terms
Dr.
of
Deji, as we
governance.
speak, Mr. President is in a closed-door meeting with leaders of the Nigerian Labour Congress, and we hope to see a statement, hopefully before 9 p.m. news, on what happened at that meeting. Now, you've talked about the shocks to Nigerians and how Nigerians are groaning under this hardship. Things were already hard before. I can imagine what a lot of people are going through now. Now, what measures can the decision has been done? The NNPC did put another stamp of authority on it today by releasing that price list, and also the statement saying, you know, subsidy is here to stay. The subsidy is gone, rather. Now, what measures can the NNPC take to alleviate the inconvenience caused by the recent price hike? And how can they ensure a consistent and uninterrupted supply of petrol to meet the demands of the population? Well, what steps need to be taken immediately by the NNPC and the federal government to, you know, to assure Nigerians that, look, things will be in control and we're with you?
What an NNPC can do is to make sure that the petroleum produce, even if it's expensive, is available. First, let it be available. Let all the petroleum marketers have access to fuel. Now, once there is availability of fuel, it will now shift to affordability.
Which station do I go to?
Yes, affordability. On the part of it being affordable, I strongly believe that Nigerians haven't gone through what I can call a mini hell of unprecedented underperformance under the Buhari administration. Should be made to go through like a systemic increase. A systemic increase, not just like moving it by over 300% without considering the masses. You are trying to say you want to save the masses, then don't forget, under the Goodluck Jonathan administration, the subsidy was removed then, and they said they are going to use the money to put into infrastructure. Government bought some buses. At the end of the day, the effect did not show on the masses itself. it is the masses that you say you are trying to save that the thing now affected the most, because the rich, even if it's 1,000 naira per liter, they can afford it. But the masses, at the end of the day, the subsidy money, that's the most painful thing, will not even go into development itself. You know, every politician want to own houses abroad, send their kids to school abroad. That's where the
you doubt that this sacrifice might not even pay off in the long run.
The sacrifice has not paid off, as we've seen from past removal of fuel subsidy.
Yeah, but this is a new government. Would you not give them a benefit of doubt?
Well, the thing is, it's a new government, but the man at the helm of affairs is not new. And if we trace the antecedent of the man at the helm of affairs, I, for one, personally, now I was born in Lagos and I've lived most of my life in Lagos. So I wouldn't expect much from him in terms of performance, because, as I've said before, he is a power-oriented kind of politician. Okay. He's not a development-oriented kind of politician. So he's the kind of politician that gives him power, he wants more power, gives him more power, he wants more power. So now he might, rather than focus on providing development for the state, he might focus on consolidating power, who becomes the Senate president, who becomes the speaker, who becomes this, who becomes that, just so that he will be able to securitize his government and be able to kind of like fulfill anything he so wish. That is and sits there. If you look at Lagos, whereby since he left office, he has dictated who becomes who in Lagos State. So he is new. He is new in office, but he's not new at the he's not new to each and every one of us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deji. It's time for me to bring our second guest, Engineer Alex Enei, CEO of Gbenga Nigeria Limited. Now, Engineer Enei, a warm welcome to you and thanks for joining us. Engineer Enei, as we speak, the Nigerian Labour Congress is in a closed-door meeting with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the NLC has raised concerns over the removal of fuel subsidy. What alternatives do you believe should be provided to the Nigerian workers to mitigate the potential negative effects of this increase? What are you expecting from the Nigerian Labour Congress after this meeting with Mr. President? Okay, we lost audio connection with the engineer Alex Enei. Now back to you, Dr. Deji. The Nigerian Labour Congress has raised concerns. They said, you know, they want to know what the government would provide to mitigate the potential negative effects. A lot of it that you've mentioned in the course of our conversation tonight. Now, what are your expectations from this meeting of the NLC and Mr. President?
Well, what I'm expecting from this meeting is for Mr. President to, I think the meeting should be masses oriented from the aspect of the president and that of labor itself. I don't want to see an elite meeting whereby, you know, they begin to think about the effect on elite, and I don't want to see a meeting that's going to end with corrupt practice.
But the NLC represents the interest of Nigerian workers. What if I'm not preempting what will happen, but if we have an announcement of an increase in the minimum wage to 50,000, would you be satisfied with such an outcome?
Well, the thing is, I think both the NLC and the government should be able to bring out their calculator. The NLC, now being representative of the people, should be able to look at, okay, how much is government going to earn from this subsidy? What is the effect of removing this subsidy on the life of the average Nigerian? And how much is going to take to cushion the effect? Now, NLC should now advocate, should now be the people's voice to now say, okay, now, if petroleum is 488 naira in Lagos, an average man in Lagos that is earning 30,000 naira before, how much is going to take such a man to now survive? I want to see a kind government. I want to see a masses-oriented government. And I want to see a masses-oriented Nigeria Labour Congress that will think about the people and not just about the interest of the elite. That's what I want to see. And at the end of the day, I want to see a president that listens, a president that is kind of like approachable so that he can have a good start, because you are ruling over the people, and you can't rule out, you know, the kind of like interest of people in your government. You have to be legitimate. The people must be in tune with your government for you to have a nice stay in office. Because at the end of the day, if people revolt against you, right now, if you do a kind of like census about the kind of like approval of this government, it is on the low. And two features have emerged from this government in its short stay, and that is that of an element of state capture, you know, in other words, whereby you want everything in the state to be at your beck and call, and you can dictate and have your way. Then we've also
do you think you're being unfair on the government?
No, I'm not unfair. I'm just saying the reality.
48 hours in office.
No, as a political society, you look out for the features of the government itself, and the features that I've seen, it's two. That is, you know, some form of emperor style. For example, now the daughter of the new president on her Instagram page just unilaterally pronounced herself as the Yaloja of Nigeria. That is absolute nonsense.
But why do you bother with that? Because she's not an elected official, and she has no office in the Constitution.
The reason why I'm bothered is
a lot of people will say it's a non-issue.
No, it's an issue because your father is the president. Because your father is the president doesn't mean you can impose yourself as the Yaloja of Nigeria. Now, there will be a system for the emergence of Iyaloja in Nigeria, and it is expected that you, as the daughter of the president, will go through that process.
Recognize the office of the Iyaloja of Nigeria.
Well, the thing is that, no, the position of Iyaloja might not be in the constitution, but there are laws, there are customs, there are traditions, there are ways and practices that guides operation and practices in Nigerian market, and there are ways for emergence of Iyaloja. But because you think your father is the president, then you now unilaterally, without any meeting, without consultation, without reference to people that have been existing in market across Nigeria, without even trying to liaise with them, and you unilaterally declare yourself as the Iyaloja of Nigeria. You can only do that when you know that you can get away with it, when you know that you can beat the system, when you know that you can live an emperor style whereby you can impose your wish on the people. And that is one of the problems with Nigeria as we have it today. So the starting of the government, I wish the new president, I wish him well, because if he succeeds, Nigeria succeeds. But for him to start at this level based on the manner at which he emerged, to me, leaves much to be desired. Without recourse to the feeling of the citizens or anything, and you just by executive fiat say subsidy is gone while you are giving your inauguration speech. This consultation with NSC is what he should have been doing. He has time to do that. Government has provided for subsidy till like the end of June. So you have time to make consultation as a new president. Then another thing is that, just a minute, please. Now, the past government, during Obasanjo's time, when he was leaving office, he removed subsidy before Yar'Adua came. So it is quite more easier for Buhari to have taken the blame, to have removed the subsidy and saved government from this embarrassment. People will target on Buhari, but Buhari is the kind of person that he doesn't know how to hustle for other people. He set a trap for you, fix it, and based on your experience in Lagos as a former governor, former leader of the party, kingmaker and all that, and you just fell into the trap, just like that.
You call it a trap, but Nigerians feel, it's economists and everybody will tell you that.
Why didn't Buhari remove it?
It's very good. It's a good decision.
Buhari said subsidy is a scam, and he has left it for 8 years. Why didn't he remove it? They should have removed that subsidy, but he left it for you, and you came on board, and you just fell into the trap just like that.
Now,
you should be thankful that Nigerians are not protesting in the streets, all over the country now.
I guess that's why he's in a meeting with the Nigerian Labour Congress. Now, moving on. Repairing the nation's 4 refineries has been mentioned as one potential alternative to fuel subsidy. Can you elaborate on the challenges and benefits of pursuing this option and how long it might take to get these refineries online and make them operational?
Good question. I think it won't take long because we already have.
So why have they not been working on this?
Because we don't want to make it work. People in government are benefiting from it. See, this subsidy thing has produced silent billionaires. The billionaires are the Dangotes, are the $10, but there are some silent billionaires that this subsidy regime have produced over the years. And these people are thriving, they are living large, owning private jet based on this subsidy. So those systems, those cabal will not allow it to work. Then we can't remove the hand of multinational corporations because they are profiting from the inability of African states, not only Nigeria,
to refine.
Yes, to refine. So our lack of technological advancement, they are profiting immensely from it, whereby they buy this raw crude oil from us at a very cheap rate. They go and refine it, and they sell it to us at an exorbitant rate. So what any reasonable government could have done is to make sure the refineries are working. So we could have gotten expatriates and to make sure that these refineries are working. Other countries have functional refineries, at least. At the least,
yeah,
we
but
should
the
have
refinery
that can serve local production.
It should be online by the end of July. How much of a relief would it be to the system? And yes.
Well, it may bring some relief, but don't forget that Dangote himself is a private investor operating not in a perfect competitive market, but rather in this case, a monopolistic market.
Yeah, but the government of Nigeria does have about 30% shares in that refinery. So they are also stakeholders.
Well, government have stakes in the refinery, but still, it is still not a perfect competitive market, except if there are other functional refineries by private individuals that, okay, are operating. Then it becomes a perfect competitive market. For example now, for example, you know,
yes.
I don't want to mention any name. There are different kind of soft drinks in Nigeria. If you don't go for this, you go for this, or you go for that. But if we have only one, that makes it a monopolistic market. So, and monopolistic market itself, it's a problem. So what government could have done is to make sure that at least the government refineries are working. So we have a system whereby the state refinery is working, or perhaps privatized, so that it will be easy for the investor. The investor now is not starting from the scratch. There's already a refinery. It is just left for the investor to get expert and make the refineries work. But there is a problem. There is a problem. And the problem is that we can't remove the hand of multinational corporations from this, because if you look at the history of multinational corporations, these are powerful people. These are people that are richer than most African countries. And if you trace the history of multinational corporations, if they can impose regime change in different African countries, like, you know, Ghana and, you know, Sudan and different countries, definitely, if they can be that powerful to impose a regime change in a country to penetrate the system with their humongous resources, contact, and financial watches, I believe that if Dangote should lose guard, if I can use that word, those multinational corporations will not make that refinery to be effective, because multinational corporation has this, what I call, insatiable taste for profit. You know, they have this insatiable taste. So, and that insatiable taste, when, you know, Nigeria is a nation of 200 million, and we are consuming large liters of petroleum produce every day. So that would naturally affect the income of those multinational corporations, and because they are addicted
we'll get back to this.
to profit, they may not make Dangote refinery to even function.
Okay, there's so much to
That's the international dynamics.
On the program today, we're looking at the effect of the subsidy removal and the way forward. This is Politics HQ at New Central Television. We'll be right back after this. You're welcome back to Politics HQ on New Central Television, and we've been discussing the impact of the subsidy removal by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I still have with me Dr. Omoshola Deji, a public affairs analyst, and engineer Alex Nayin. Let's try and re-establish connection with engineer Nayin. Good evening to you, sir. Can you hear me? Hello, good evening, engineer Nayin. Are you there? Okay, I guess Deji and I will continue with the conversation. Now, given the long queues and logistical challenges that have been witnessed at stations, how might this development impact daily lives and productivity in major cities and urban areas? What urgent steps can the government take to ensure smoother and efficient distribution process? Because it's very disruptive. We've seen videos of Nigerians complaining, It's one headache after the other. Just a few months ago, we saw the disruptions of the CBN cash policy to the Nigerian economy. A lot of people lost billions, and now Nigerians are in another round of untold hardship. So what can the government, knowing that it still has a goodwill, it's in its first 72 hours, what can it do now to relieve the sufferings of Nigerians?
Well, it's a 2-in-1 question. If I can pick the first part on how it's going to affect productivity. Well, it's going to affect productivity because right now, one, cost of production has increased. Now, when cost of production increases and the prices remains the same, now the actual value of the commodity, the standard of the commodity drops because now the private companies will want to maintain their profit-oriented companies. So right now that cost of production has increased, definitely it's either the price of the goods increase or the standard of that particular goods drop. If you are buying a biscuit, for example, it's either the price of that biscuit increase or the standard of that biscuit, the taste of something, yeah, or they remove one. You know, they have to find a way to kind of like meet up with the cost of production. Then generally, human productivity will be low across the country. And when you kind of like take a sum of the whole, bit by bit, it now leads to a kind of like decline in general productivity in the country itself because people will not be able to get to work early, and people we have one or two hindrances in getting to work. Workers will be disgruntled with their employer because their income that is not enough before, they'll be seeking pay rise, and the company itself is not getting any kind of new money, in quote, we know, whether by subsidy from the government. So it's going to affect productivity generally across board. Then it also have effect on the home, but let me just stay on the
now, Deji, we've seen that this is the hard effects of it. Some have argued that, you know, the government put the cart before the horse. You were expecting a gradual, that's what you've argued for on this program, a gradual removal. And then the government put in the cushion first before asking you to jump. Those palliatives or incentives that would, you know, help to cushion the effects of this 300% increase in transportation for some people. Now that the government has seen what has happened in the last 48 hours, what sort of palliatives or what sort of policies do you expect the government to bring forth to at least reduce the sufferings of Nigerian masses? Because I've not seen any buses in the pipeline. I've not seen any new train systems that will just come online in the next 48 hours. So what can they do realistically to reduce the sufferings of
providing
Nigerians?
new buses, you know, I think why it is a good concept is a lazy man's approach to cushioning the effect of the removal of subsidy on the masses. What I want to see is an institutional approach whereby you're going to tell the multinational corporation, Shell, Chevron, Ajib, Total, that if our oil is good for you to export, now you've been, for example, Shell has been operating in Nigeria since 1958. What is stopping the Nigerian government from telling Shell that if you want to keep operating in Nigeria, you must have a refinery that you can use to meet up with the local consumption? So that alone, now the force of demand supply would fall in. There will be an equilibrium point, and at the end of the day, the price of petroleum produce would naturally reduce. Imagine Dangote competing with Shell, Shell competing with Total, each having refineries in Nigeria. If our country is so good enough for you to have operated for 60 years, what is stopping Shell?
And then the availability of the product too.
Now, the product is available because this oil and gas was my doctoral research topic. The oil is available in Nigeria.
So we have no business with fuel scarcity.
We have no business with fuel scarcity, but the multinational corporations are actually holding Nigeria to ransom by failing to make sure that they have refineries in Nigeria.
I mean, it's
and
not
they
their
have
responsibility.
Sorry, just a moment.
It's the Nigerian government's responsibility.
Yes, and they have survived that based on the comprador relationship between the multinational corporations and the Nigerian ruling elite. So far as this comprador relationship, which has thrived for years, continues, definitely the oil multinational corporation will keep operating the way they are. For example, in Malaysia, when Shell got to Malaysia, Shell told Malaysian government, Shell now, told Malaysian government that, okay, we need to bring in foreign expatriates. We don't have, there are no expatriates in your country that we can use, which was one of the arguments that was placed in the Niger Delta as at then. The country gave Shell and the other multinational 10 years. Okay, if we don't have expatriates now, okay, you can pick people, train them, and in the next 10 years, sure, they can undo whatever you want them to undo. Now, in your operational statistics, we want so-so quota of Malaysians as your staff, holding key positions. They believe that by so doing, the sense of national patriotism on the part of those people will not let them to kind of like create a system whereby the multinational corporation will just be doing as they like.
Or they will be held ransom.
Exactly. That is the pattern Nigeria should have followed in such a way that, well, for example, if Shell can liaise with the Abacha military government for the execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa, the Ogoni 9, now what is stopping Nigerian government or Shell from liaising to provide at least a refinery, local refinery in that Ogoni? They have the resources, they have the skills, they have the technology, they have all it takes. But this has not occurred, and the Nigerian state has failed to kind of like make that happen based on that comprador. Who could have thought that by the time Ken Saro-Wiwa was advocating, my people are dying, environmental degradation, develop my community. Who could have thought that the man that was executed, as at the time he was executed, Abacha is busy keeping that same oil money that could have used for the development, provision of refinery, and keeping the money abroad. And he has died now. It is decades, and he's still giving Nigeria a lot. Nigeria is still receiving a lot. One money, Abacha loot here, Abacha loot there, Abacha loot everywhere.
Dr. Deji, let's move on to other things. We have a robust oil and gas industry, and like you said, your doctorate degree was in oil and gas. Now, how can the government encourage investment and innovation in oil and gas sector to promote domestic refining and reduce reliance on imports? I mean, it's a shame that so many years after independence, we're still importing crude, we're still importing refined products. What policy changes or incentives could be necessary to achieve this? That look, we're starting from a clean slate. We need to refine, and it's a good thing that we already have the Dangote refinery online. So how can we encourage more investment in the oil and gas sector?
Well, the policy change comes under the two umbrellas, which is number one, liberalizing the process, and two, rule of law. No investor wants to come into a country whereby they invest millions and billions of dollars to set up a refinery, and somebody will just wake up and thinks he or she, as a leader, doesn't like their face and begin to give them trouble or issues. So now, if they run to court, they want to see a government that obeys court orders. So what government can do is to make sure that rule of law is entrenched. That would encourage foreign direct investment in terms of provision of refinery and the development of the oil and gas sector itself. Now, that is one. Two is liberalizing the process, making sure that the process is transparent and there is a clear cut for anybody that is interested in having a refinery. Imagine, Nigeria is a big market. We should, we should have like 20 different kind of refineries. If the system is liberalized, I don't want a system whereby Dangote will use his contact with the president and the political class to now kind of like entrench a monopolistic system, and he himself will now sit on top Nigerian economy, milking Nigerians rather than providing affordable fuel for the country. But if government liberalize the process and if there is rule of law, I'm sure there are so many foreign investors that wants to invest in it's just like they call the telecom industry. Nigeria has an advantage, which is the people, huge population. Wherever there is people, there is money. So the people are the market. You know, wherever there's people, there's a market there. So because we're a nation of 200 million, and don't forget, now, Nigeria's consumption of fuel is at a monumental increment every day because of the failure of constant electricity. For example,
and of course, there's smuggling concerns
yes,
too,
if there's
electricity,
if there's electricity in Nigeria this evening, and if there's no electricity, compare the liters of fuel that will be used in one evening in Nigeria where there is no electricity. We have, you know, media, hotels, companies,
private
individuals fueling their gen. Now, if you look at it, like, you know, it's like a cycle. At the end of the day, if you now kind of like examine it, you will see that definitely there are people that would not want the Nigerian electricity to kind of like be effective, because if it is effective, it will affect their profit in the oil and gas sector. So what I want the government to do, apart from liberalizing the process, is to make supporting, you know, amenities, supporting institutions functional. Before removing fuel subsidy at 300%, definitely you should make sure that at least the electricity aspect is more functional. Because imagine now, like a barbing salon, somebody that's, you know, a kind of like small shop operating a barbing salon. How much does the person want to buy fuel? How much is he going to charge?
I mean, it's just basic economics. He can't charge the same amount he was charging before. So there will be inflation. We're already dealing with high inflation.
But I am sure that if government liberalize the process, I'm sure there are a lot of investors that wants to come in terms of building private refineries. There are big guys in the oil and gas industry globally that what is kind of like
they just need a right policy direction and an enabling environment
and a government of a nation that is reputable for obeying court orders and rule of law, so that when the court says, okay, do this way, you obey the court order. When these things are in place, definitely the private investors will come. And when the private investor comes, and we have so many refineries, whether government owned is functional or they sell it to private individuals, then we will now have a perfect competitive market that would automatically drive down the cost. For example, imagine if we only have MTN operating in Nigeria. MTN would only set
their own prices.
And
there will be a monopoly. Now, let's talk about Nigerian individuals, private individuals, you and I, and small businesses. They've told us that we have to adjust our belts because things are not the same again. Prices will go up. Now, the fluctuating petrol prices have caused uncertainty for businesses and consumers. How can individuals and companies adapt their budgeting and financial planning to accommodate these price fluctuations, this change that we've seen in the last 48 hours?
Well, how companies can adjust their
budgeting and adapt, yes.
Their budget, I think...
And individuals too.
Well, both companies and individuals, trying to adapt the budget is going to cost them more. For example, if you are buying fuel to power your generator based on low cost of electricity, the only way you can adjust is to go solar. And if you are to install solar that will power all the amenities that you need, it is not cheap. It is not cheap. Though on the long run, it will be beneficial to you for a year. But that first
payment,
that first money that you need to set it up doesn't come cheap. So it has not been in your budget before. So what could be done is for at least to make sure that government liaises with the electricity sector and see that, okay, there's constant electricity. If there's constant electricity, that would reduce
the demand for
fuel. Then the amenities, for example, if the roads are good, you would spend less time on the roads in traffic, and that amounts to less fuel consumption. Nigeria is the only country whereby
so these are low-hanging fruits and things the government can
Nigeria is one of the rare countries whereby you will see long traffic And when you get to the front, it's just, you know, one pothole that is causing the traffic. And you have spent hours in that particular traffic. So if all these things are fixed, and you have lesser time to spend on the road, and your vehicle is moving smoothly, that would automatically trickle down to less consumption of fuel itself. And
Dr.
at the end of
Deji,
the day,
Omoshola, I'm afraid we have to go at this point. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you on
My
Politics
pleasure.
HQ.
Thanks for having me.